Technical support. Hello, welcome to the Headliners. I'm your host, Edwin Mbeche, CEO and founder of Helen Super App. Today, I have a new friend, and we're gonna learn a lot of good value stuff that like everybody can kind of just implement in their life to just kind of create an awesome life for you, for your family, for your just loved one. Today, my new friend is Dr. Pranay Parikh, who is a founder, who's a co-founder and president of Ascended Equity Group. So we're gonna talk a lot of stuff, just get to learn something and just get to know also Dr. Parikh. And hey, Dr. Pranay Parikh, welcome to the show.
Hey Ed, I'm super happy to be here.
This is so awesome. I'm so happy like I get to chat with you today. I know. So let's do this. Normally, I always kind of trying to get people get to know you first, right? So like maybe let's go way back to your childhood. Like where did you grow up? Like, were you a Boy Scout? Things like that. Uh,
Yeah, so I'm first generation immigrant. My parents were from India. I got fortunate that my dad came here. He came from a small town, couple thousand people in the whole town.
wow.
They just got toilets for the first time like 10 years ago. So
Jeez.
small,
Yeah, yeah.
small place. So super
Mm,
fortunate that my dad came here for a better life, right?
yeah. Mhm.
And he came to San Jose, California, Silicon Valley. He was an electrical engineer.
Yeah.
And so technology was always a big part of my life. And his parents, like most Indian parents, they wanted him to be a doctor,
Yeah.
and he was
Yeah.
scared of blood.
Mm.
So he's like, he told
Yeah.
his parents that, I'm not going to be a doctor, but
Mm.
my kids will be.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I loved medicine. I love understanding how things work.
Mhm.
And then actually, eventually, my brother became a doctor too. So both his
Yeah.
sons became doctors. And so yeah, that's kind of how I started in medicine. Always wanted to be a doctor.
Mhm.
Went to UCSD and then went to Ross for med school. Residency I did at USC, so back in California, University of Southern California,
Mhm.
and I got into real estate because, I just wanted a good place to put my money. I
Yeah.
didn't want to
Yeah.
think too hard. Um, I understand real estate, right? And just the very basics. I didn't buy anything big in the starting. It's just people need a place to live. I'm going to give them a good place to live. They'll give me rent because my,
Let's do
yeah,
this.
yeah,
I know you have awesome stories about real estate and
yeah,
people
yeah,
can
yeah.
learn it from. Let's go back, and I know
Mm-hmm,
this is probably like um, for an immigrant kid,
mm-hmm.
and it's a little bit different than and there's this exposure you get exposure when you're little to your parents where like either like maybe like let's say your parents is trying to buy a house and you're the kid who's like 12 years old trying to explain to them like you're the translator
Yeah.
right. So it's like you grow up with this different. I'm sure probably you went through that also, like where uh you have to be the translator when you're little, translating to your parents. Did you have that kind of experience?
No, it was a little different. So my
Hmm.
dad's an engineer. He got a
Okay.
master's degree,
Okay.
so didn't need a ton of that. And my dad was actually even an entrepreneur.
Okay.
Picked up a lot of stuff, a lot of failed businesses, but
Mhm.
that's where I realized like it's okay. My dad's super successful and he has like 15 failed businesses, and you can
Yeah.
still be successful while failing 90% of the time. You just need one or two businesses to succeed to do well.
Exactly. I guess that's where it become also tricky because people, um, like where like you're right, like you're trying this because you're trying to find the right fit.
Hmm.
It's almost like when people are looking for a job, they're always looking for a job. Like, oh, I'm not happy here. Oh, I'm not happy here. So a business is almost like that. You get passionate about something, but then you introduce to the market. And, oh, it didn't work. So you gotta try something again. Maybe something either stick with it, or you just be like, oh, this is not gonna work, and then you kind of go to another thing until you find the right fit, and then like from all this learning experience, actually is really good because you kind of it's like a bunch of knowledge you just stacking up like okay, this has never worked on this company, I'm going to do a little different. So from there, It's just a massive experience. But by watching him, though, you got to learn a lot of things about developing business and stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of like dating, right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
very rarely do people find the right person right away.
hmm
And even if they do, they still got to work on themselves, you know?
yeah, yeah.
I have to apologize to the people I dated in the beginning, you know? Because, I've grown to be a better person since then. And, fortunately they put up with me back then.
Good.
But it's not just learning yourself, learning what appeals to you, but also learning what you want. In the starting, you're 16 or 18 or 20, you don't know what you want, right? You
Yeah,
think you want one thing when you end up marrying something totally different, but it's what you want because there's things you think that appeals to you, right? Maybe
mhm,
you want to own a shoe store, right? You
yeah,
love Nikes and you're like, yeah,
mhm,
I'm gonna buy sneakers, and
yeah,
and I realize you hate dealing with sneakerheads, right? Like people that love sneakers, or maybe
yeah,
you love to eat, you love ice cream. You're like, let me open an ice cream store, and then all of a
yeah,
sudden you hate ice cream, right?
yeah.
Because dealing with ice cream day in day out, so it's learning what appeals to you, and every um, you know and I wouldn't even call it a failure. It's every learning experience, you get a little piece, right? And that's why, when everyone knows Shark Tank, right?
hmm hmm
What really appeals to them is people that are second time entrepreneurs. So maybe they've had a failed business, but they've learned so much that
Yeah.
their second time just huge chance of success. And that's kind of
hmm
how I look at when I approach a new project. Like, what am I gonna learn? I have my own podcast, and
Yeah.
if it fails like terrifically, like totally, I
mhm,
know that I'm better at communicating what I want, and also I'm better at talking to people and asking questions and being a better listener. So you could say, yeah, maybe it crashed and burned, but I gained all these skills for free, right?
mhm, mhm.
That it would have taken me years to do outside of doing the podcast.
What's the name of your podcast? Just in case
Yeah.
someone need to
It's called From MD to Entrepreneur. So,
from MD.
I
Mhm.
talk to different entrepreneurs, learning their life history and kind of the skills and tricks that they've used to succeed in entrepreneurship.
Okay, let's go back to someone. If one of your ex stumble on this interview, and they say like you mentioned is like dating, and you apologize to them like you were like still learning, and probably some of them like, well, after you learned, why you didn't come back to me? You're like, I kept moving. That's good. So from AMD to real estate,
hmm
when was I guess when was the like bulb went in and you're like, hey, I want to start getting into real estate? Did you reach out to friends? Because now like you're the co-host, right? I mean, you're not the co-host, the co-founder of the
hmm
company, right?
hmm
Did you Was that you who was like, hey, or was it like your friend who's like, we should do this? And why real estate instead of like, hey, uh let's start a technology company that deal with doctor or help doctors,
hmm
right? Because with the background, right, you have the
hmm
background as a doctor, you're like, we can start an application that does with doctors and stuff. Why real estate?
So in the starting, it was just let me find a good place to put my money,
Mhm.
safe and going to give me a good return. Not this grand ambition to create this, big real estate company.
Mhm.
But I'm always focused on education,
Mhm.
right? So I learned along the process, like this was a lot of work, and so could I find a way to invest in real estate without doing all this extra work? Because I'd rather just be at the hospital.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wasn't trying to. And some people they're burned out, and they're trying to find an escape. But I like medicine. I still practice, and so that's when I found syndications where you can invest with a bunch of other people and buy big apartment complexes, two, three
Exactly.
hundred.
Mhm.
And at the time, this was, 5, 6 years ago, there weren't many resources to learn how to do it. There's a couple books now. So we actually created a course to teach doctors how to invest, doctors and dentists. We've had engineers, lawyers, everyone take it. But focus on, I know you have money to invest, but you don't have time. Like, how do we teach you in a couple weeks, quickly as possible?
Mhm.
And so we've had a couple thousand people take our course. And after it, they're like, yeah, we still don't have time. Now we know how to do it, but we don't have
Yeah.
time. And
Mm.
we know this because we've taken the course. So they said, you guys are investing your own money. Why don't we just come together, all of us pool our money together? Maybe we could get better deals, better terms. And that's why we created the company. In the starting, we would get a small piece of a big deal, and now we're able to take down, 300 units ourselves. And so we get much better negotiating power, better terms, and better deals.
Okay. So let's in starting, I know like hopefully I didn't skip that because my mind is like all over going. I want to ask so many questions. In starting with your friend, your
Hmm.
co-founder, is
Hmm.
that also a doctor? Like you guys, how
Yeah.
did you guys meet? Kind of, yeah.
All three of us are doctors. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
So, yeah, all three of us are doctors, and we've been doing real estate for many years.
Uh,
And, it's nice to have someone with a shared background. I think,
yeah.
y- second to your marriage, the most important relationship or partnership that you can pick
Yeah.
is your business partner. It can really make or break a deal. So it's really important to find someone that you really connect with and you share values.
Hmm. That's true. I guess, and also like that relationship that you guys kind of, yeah, you had that. So it's like almost like kind of friendship. You know each other, how you work, and
Hmm.
all that. And all three of you were motivated to do something. It's like you motivated for that vision or for that mission, right? To get into real estate. So into syndication, right?
Hmm.
Uh, let's say someone wants to get in real estate because there's so much information on real estate, and some people are like, oh, don't invest into real estate, we can show you how to make your money better, whatever. And now also there's so many, just not syndication, where there's like almost you can buy, I guess that's part of syndication, you can buy like a share in an apartment, right? You say, hey,
Hmm.
there's an
Hmm.
apartment is being sold for 300,000. How many apartment? Just one. But if you put your money in it, then we can
Exactly.
yeah. So into kind of, I have, let's say I have $100,000, right? And I want to see an apartment, maybe some, depending on the area. In the area, maybe they are selling their apartment for 300,000, and the apartment it has like maybe 3 units. With my $100,000, should I invest in that as new person, like into real estate? I don't know much about real estate. Should I use my 100,000 to invest the whole thing 100, or should I invest 50,000? Should I just not use that and use that money maybe in syndication and watch people what they are doing first in the syndication to learn? Or should I take your course like to learn first before I jump in? For because like you're saying, there's a lot of work also that goes in there, right?
I think I would look at the person, right, to
Mhm.
figure out what their goals are. And I think it all kind of starts with there, right?
Okay.
So, are you the type of person that likes to have control?
Mhm.
Um, a lot of doctors feel that they are that type of person, but you can only control so many parts of your life, right?
Yeah.
Until it starts falling apart. And so some people like to have control. They like real estate, they like the idea. And so for that person, it might make sense to buy their own, right?
Mhm.
And even if you don't know anything about real estate, you pick up a book or two, you can learn 80% of the way there. People have been buying real estate for hundreds of years. It's not
Yeah.
really super complicated, right? Um, you don't necessarily need to take a course on it.
Yeah.
And so that is very doable, and you'll learn along the way, right?
Mhm.
And the nice thing is about real estate, unlike like stocks or bonds, it's very rare to lose all your money, right? So
Yep.
maybe you get buy at the high top of the market, but if you hold long enough, right? So for example, in the 80s, interest rates were 18%, right? Which makes our interest rates look tiny. But
Yep. Yep.
so, if it was 1989, you'd be like, man, I just made the worst decision of my life, right?
Yep.
But now think about it. If you own 10 of those properties, right, it'd probably be worth 4 times as much, right? So
Exactly.
the
Yep.
nice thing about real estate is if you hold out long enough, all kind of mistakes correct out.
Yeah.
But it's a time issue. If you're buying your own real estate, you really got to treat it like a second job,
Mhm.
and it is. And those are people that I've seen very successful. They buy, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 units, and they're
Yeah.
making, 10, 20, 30,000 a month, and it's very possible. But that's all they do, or maybe their wife or husband is stay at home and they focus on that, so it's really hard to manage if you have a W-2 or if you work full time, so
Yeah.
that's one side. What kind of goal? But if you're like, you're super burned out, whatever you're doing, you're like, I need to get out, then that might make a lot of sense for you.
Mhm.
But on the syndication side, it's people that, maybe they want to cut down a little bit from their day job. They still enjoy it, but they want to cut down a little bit. They want something that has zero time after your investment. So
Yeah.
it's really important to do proper vetting in the beginning, and we can talk about that in a little bit. But after that, you kind of just sit back and wait for a check. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah. So, when was the so you got together, three of you.
Hmm.
So I'm talking of like when you created. I guess you got together, you created the company,
Hmm.
right? And then you're like, okay, to start before you quit your job,
Hmm.
or did you just like put your money and quit your job and then start syndication?
Yeah.
Like, what was the transition there?
Yeah, well, so I haven't quit my job. I actually have a couple jobs, so a couple full-time jobs. So including Ascend. I still
Mhm.
practice a little bit. I don't, it's definitely a lot less than full-time, but
Yeah.
now it's for fun,
Okay.
and
Now
I, I
you enjoy more, not
yeah,
stressful kind
yeah,
of. Yeah.
and I think
Mhm.
I want, this is a key point. I don't want doctors out of medicine. We
Mhm.
need them. We have a crisis. But what I want is I want doctors to be practicing because they enjoy it, And I think,
Instead of stressful kind of. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
think the big thing to do is to remove the money part, right? If you're able to provide for your family, which is, number one priority, right? I love my patients, but
Yeah.
you know, I love my family more,
Yeah. 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 You like. Yeah. You want to spend
so
more time with family. Yeah. You're
yeah,
right. Yeah.
well, I,
Yeah.
I just want to, if I know they're provided for, then
Yeah.
I can take care of my patients. And, honestly, that'll make me a better doctor. If I don't
Mhm.
have to worry about money, I'm not stressed, I'm not anxious about paying my mortgage, and that's where we want people to be. And 40 hours a week. And actually, most doctors are working more than that. I think that's too much.
Yeah.
I think maybe 2, 3 days a week, and
Yeah.
we can encourage more people to get into medicine if we can do that. And, I promise you, everyone's health is going to get a lot better if all the doctors are much happier, and
Yeah. Because you have a long schedule too, right? Like when you're talking
yeah,
about like from
yeah,
like
loans are
12 hours, it's
ridiculous.
easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
a lot of that is out of doctors' control.
Yeah.
Corporatization of medicine, moral injury, and stuff. But if we can provide income for people, then maybe they're like, yeah, the hospital wants me to work Saturday, but
Mhm.
let's spend it with my son, or
Mhm.
I'm going to do date night with my family instead of answering phone calls.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you really need money to do that. So
Yeah.
that's our goal, to really help people get the flexibility. But I mean, there's people that want to work 20, 25 shifts a month, and that actually used to be me. That's what I
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
in the beginning.
Yeah.
More power to them, but we want it to be an option.
Mhm. So you got into syndication. You go into
Mhm,
the like when was the transition? Because now Ascended Equity Group, you invest, right?
mhm.
But also, do you invest into real estate company, or do you just invest in your own company where you just buy this property with like over what is it, over 100 units at least? That's the minimum.
Yeah, yeah. So we usually 2, 300. We'll
Okay.
buy something as small as 120 units, and as
Okay.
high as 500 units. So it kind
Okay.
of varies. So what we do is we partner with real estate experts. At the end of the
Yeah.
day, all three of us are doctors. We're very good at communication, leadership, and what we're also good at is managing. As a doctor, a lot of your real goal is to manage, a whole team, other
Yeah.
doctors, nurses, techs, blood labs. So we go in, we partner with someone that runs the day to day, like I don't really care about the maintenance. I don't really care about leases and stuff. All that stuff is important, but what I
Yeah.
really care about is how am I going to move the needle? How am I going to renovate? How am I going to increase profit? So
Yeah.
because we have someone that manages the day to day, we can kind of focus on the big picture. And
Mhm.
so we'll buy the whole property. Someone runs the day to day, and then we really focus on how do we make this property a huge success for our investors.
Okay. When you say someone to manage day to day,
Mhm.
can you go in a little bit detail? Like, what
Yeah.
is this people? Are the people just collecting rent? Are the people that fixing the property? Like, are they two different management company? Like the one that fixes problems and the one just collect rent, or just one company?
So there's a property management.
Hmm.
They're usually in-house and they'll do leases, they'll walk the properties and all that stuff.
Hmm.
But we partner with someone we call an operator, and they're a real estate company. They do this for a living, probably 30 years of experience, 20, 30 years. And they run the property.
Yeah.
They're making daily decisions. They're, deciding what color of this goes,
Yeah.
what, they have the maintenance crews and all that stuff. So we're really focused on profit, maximizing profit,
Yeah.
while still making a good, because we don't want to maximize profit when we're being like slumlords, right? So we want to
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
sure that we're really, it's a win-win, right? Win for the
Mm.
residents, win for us, and then win for our investors.
Yeah, because you want to also like the ideal I guess the ideal residence is someone who comes in stay at least minimum of 3 years, right? Instead of keep like 1 year, keep rotating. So what is the minimum there? Maybe for someone getting into like what is the good time like to kind of because you don't want the revolving door also, right? Like 2 3 months there's no residence there, then you find another one, then so it's like it's always people moving in and out, kind of in and out. What will be a good thing? Do you deal with those kind of problem, or are you guys like, hey, our apartment is so good, everybody loves it, they love the price, and
We haven't had to deal with that as much. So there,
mhm,
you want to be around 96% full, because you always want there to be people leaving, right? Because
mhm.
then you could increase rents, right? If everyone is staying, you can't increase rents and you can't renovate,
Aha,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So you want there to be a little bit of turnover,
So
but not too
mhm.
much.
Okay, okay, perfect. So let's talk with the company, Ascent Equity Group, right?
Yeah.
Do you if I'm hopefully I did not miss this. You do training also, right? You do training for new people coming into the business. Or how does this
So
work?
we do, Ascent.
Mhm,
We have some education materials, but we have another company called Passive Income MD, and that's where the course is, and it's more of an education company. We
mhm,
do a couple conferences, and the goal is to get people educated so they can do deals themselves, find deals, invest in
mhm.
deals, and then for people that kind of want us to handle the whole process for them, there's Ascent Equity Group.
Okay. What is I know you have another company, it's called Nocturnalist Lead. Nocturnalist. Did I say the name correctly? Is it
No,
is
not
it
no.
Good Samaritan?
Oh,
Noc-
Good Samaritan. Yeah. So
yeah,
Good
yeah.
Samaritan
Mhm.
is, yeah. So, oh, sorry, I understood wrong. I'm a nocturnist, so that means I
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
work nights. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
very good. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's my physician job.
Okay.
So I work at Good Sam, and I actually need to update it, so I don't work there as
Mhm.
much. But yeah, so I work as a night doctor, and that's one of the reasons why I can get so much done during the day.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Um, for someone new that they want to start a real estate, like saying they like the control of having it.
Hmm.
Like I know you mentioned about how someone can be like, it depends on a personality. Do you want to go in syndication? You want to do this yourself? Let's say someone you want to start your own real estate, but you don't want to deal with syndication, right? And
Hmm.
you say, hey, I have enough money to at least buy uh maybe a 10 unit building, right? And and like the 10 unit uh what would be the process, maybe kind of just give a little bit, like what would be the process for them to, like, with no experience, they don't have
Yeah.
no experience in real estate, but they love the idea of real estate, they don't have a real estate license, but they just want to get into that. Does it require a real to be a realtor for you to get into this business? Can you just register?
So you don't need a real estate license, and I'd say 98% of people in real estate don't have one.
Yeah.
So what you need to do is you need a little education. So
Hmm.
you can probably just go on Amazon, type in real estate,
Hmm.
pick the top like two books, and you'll read those, maybe read them twice. You'll have 80% of everything you need to know, and then it's all people. You need to go out, find a good real estate agent, and if you're living somewhere where it's not too expensive, so you're not living in Los Angeles, you're not living in New York, start looking at properties. So and go on Zillow, Zilloy, start
Hmm.
looking at properties for sale, right? What you can do on there is you can click the heart button.
Hmm.
So you can follow it, and then you'll be like, okay, yeah, this property looks pretty good. Maybe I'd buy it,
Hmm.
and then see if someone else bought it, right? How much did they buy it for? So you can start getting some skills or some experience in it. Your real estate agent will be able to help as well. And you and I were talking about before we started recording, you have some specific location specific
Yep.
information. That's
Yep.
why real estate still makes sense
Hmm.
because it's hyper local,
Yeah.
meaning that people who are living in a certain area know more about it than other people, right? There's a reason why Goldman Sachs can't just come in and buy a block or buy a
Hmm.
couple houses because they don't know which ones make sense. They don't know the neighborhoods, and they
Yeah.
can, but that's going to take a lot of effort. So that's why it's still possible to make a lot of money in real estate. So I would start low, start slow. Like look at some properties, be like, okay, yeah, I'd invest in this, and then you get an idea. Be like, okay, I could buy this for 100,000. I could rent it out for $1,000. That
Yeah.
makes sense. Start
Yeah.
looking at what you can rent and all this stuff we've done. Right? We all have looked for houses. We've all looked for rents, but it's just putting those together. If I could buy this, I could get this much rent. If I could buy this, I could get this much rent.
Yeah.
Here's what I would offer, and then start walking some of these properties and be like, oh yeah, I walked this property, it looked pretty good, it went in a week, so that
Hmm.
was a good choice. I walked this property, I thought it looked good, no one bought it. Something must have been wrong,
Hmm.
so it's starting to figure out what your accuracy is,
Hmm.
right? And you slowly will get that. In a couple months, you'll feel pretty comfortable to start buying. I wouldn't go out and buy a 10 unit right off the bat. I
Hmm.
would at least do some research for 5 to 6 months. But something like a single family house, isn't as risky, right? Worst case scenario, you sell it in a couple years, you lose a couple $1,000, but you probably won't, as long as you can hold it long enough. So there's a lot of opportunity in real estate.
Yeah.
Just don't start too big right away.
So, oh, yeah, okay. So, because in my head, I'm like, okay, don't start too big. But at the same time, I'm like, because there's an opportunity, right? Like to say, if I buy the 10 unit,
Mhm.
I'm able to make this much, right? But if as I'm starting, I become like a syndication company, or not. I don't know if that's part of the syndication. So, like, let's say I start my own real estate company, and I start looking for investor to invest into my company, so we can buy. Because I'm thinking, okay, instead of me buying a 10 unit building, but if I find few investors, now I'm able to afford the 100 unit building. So instead of me getting maybe $5,000 a month from this 10 unit, but if I get more investor, we get 100. Now my $5,000 become 10,000 or become 15,000. So that attracted me more to get more people, investor, to invest into my company. Would that be also a way? Or because maybe because I don't have the experience of like either managing this thing, but at the same time, there's so much also like where there's so much company, like management company, where I can be like, okay, I will be the person who manages this management company, but also give the portal to investors who are coming in to invest in my company. Do you see what I'm going with this? I'm like, I don't want to
Yeah.
just to get the 5,000. I want the 20,000 a month.
Yeah, but remember that you're giving returns to your investors, right? And they
Exactly.
typically get returns first. So that means
Yep.
you're actually not getting any money till the property sales. So, that's a couple years in the future. So, the question would be for your investors,
Mhm.
Why would they invest with you when they could invest with someone else that has a ton of experience, you know?
Why
Um,
not? Why not offer like rent sharing?
Sorry?
Rent sharing, right? I'm
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about
So
the
you have to,
so.
maybe you give better terms, and that's
Mhm,
definitely something that people do,
mhm,
or maybe you turn that into a positive. For us, like, not being in real estate gives us a lot of opportunity to do things differently, right?
mhm.
Everyone in real estate kind of does things in one way, and we're kind of disrupting, right? Like, if you
Yeah.
look at Uber, right? They weren't
Mhm,
from the taxi company, but would anyone take a taxi now? No,
yeah.
they take is Ubers, right? Or
Yeah.
Airbnb and that kind of stuff. So, not having experience, it can be a benefit, but you also got to think about, like, if you don't have experience, then where are you going to get your investors from, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to have done some real estate. So if you've done no real estate at all, then that's going to be tough. For us,
Invest a
like,
little
for
bit.
example, we've done a lot of our own passive investments and syndication companies. We own our own properties. So, we can kind of fall back on that. So it's hard to start from zero
Mhm.
to go into syndications. That's why it's better to go out, buy a couple properties, kill it on those, and then you can start a syndication company.
Hmm. So no way for someone just starting. It will become difficult until maybe some people or some family member or whatever they want to invest in a company. But
Yeah,
listen, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, like my dad says, if it was easy, everyone would do it.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about what do you want out of this because you're in Los Angeles area, right? Are you growing the company to do business nationwide, or are you just focusing on the West Coast? What's the story?
We fortunately do business nationwide. We buy
Okay.
Florida, Texas,
Mhm.
Arizona. We buy all over. Actually none in California,
Oh, really?
because
Yeah, yeah.
you have to
Uh-huh.
you have to pay California taxes even if you live elsewhere,
Mhm.
because you pay state taxes. So, the goal is to really help as many physicians as we can, to really make a difference in their lives. And so that's really the goal of business, and we're doing that through real estate.
Okay. If someone want to do business with you, what are you looking for? What kind of deal should they come with to you? Like, hey, I need to either a syndication or either a real estate company. What are you looking for into kind of people to partner with you?
Yeah, so we look at multifamily. So we buy big apartment complexes,
Mhm,
150 units plus, Class B, which is kind of middle of the ground, basically newer than 1970s.
mhm,
And right now we're looking at low leverage, meaning that we're putting small-ish loans on it. So like if you and I were to buy a house, we'd put down 20%, right? So
mhm,
a loan would be 80%. But
mhm,
right now we're looking to take a loan of 60%. So put down payment of 40%. And that's because, your biggest risk is your debt. And so
mhm.
everyone knows about interest rates and how crazy it's been. So, we are on the very conservative side when it comes to how we talk about returns. And,
Mhm.
we think that if the market's down 25%, if we can give a 5% positive return,
Yeah.
then that's a win on our end,
Mhm.
so we are, so that's kind of the deals we're looking at. We're pretty open to um, anywhere in the US, but we focus on low or no tax states.
Okay. Okay. So that's Delaware. I was about to say Delaware. Delaware is very slow. Delaware is very slow. It's not a it's very slowly building slowly, even like in the area like Wilmington, Delaware. The downtown area very slow. There's some few other cities that build really a little bit faster where even if you say you're gonna hold it into your property maybe 4 or 5 years later, but Delaware probably you need at least 10 years yeah. Well, let's do this. How can people find you? And do you have anything maybe on Amazon like people can read like a book or anything? How can people find you?
No, so we have a newsletter,
Mhm,
and it's free. We send out information about what we think is going on in the market,
mhm,
and you can get that at
mhm,
ascentequitygroup.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. You could also email me directly, Pranay at ascentequitygroup.com. And then you can find my podcast, From MD to Entrepreneur, at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts.
That's awesome. Listen, thank you so much, Dr. Pranay Parikh. This was awesome. A lot of good information here. I really appreciate for taking the time to chat with me. All right.
Yeah. Thanks,
All
Edward.
right.
Appreciate it.